Hello and welcome to another episode of Devs Do Something. So this episode will be our first ever gaming related episode, and our guests today are two members of the Planet IX team. So for those of you that have never heard of Planet IX, we'll get into all the gameplay and things like that and just how it works at the beginning of this episode. But it is one of the most popular games in the Polygon ecosystem. They have a really large community, and it even clogged up the network, I think, for a short time early in its launch cycle. But this episode will be good for those of you interested in Web3 gaming because we go deep into how their team has thought about building this game out. So we get into their smart contract architecture. They had to build over 50 contracts to make this happen. We went into where they decided to build their own stuff off the shelf and where they decided to integrate with other tooling. We went into how they think about designing in-game economies, how they think about the interoperability between the Web2 stack and Web3 stack. Planet IX is interesting in that they've decided to do as much as possible on-chain, where most of the gameplay is actually on-chain stuff, which is quite fascinating, right? I expected them to have maybe a couple of features that are Web3 related and most of it just being a standard Web2 game, but that really wasn't the case. But there is a set of interesting questions and things that they brought up around how the Web2 stack and the smart contract stack should interoperate with each other. So for those of you that are interested in designing your own games, for those of you that want to maybe write smart contracts that are related to gaming, I think this episode will be a fantastic introduction to you when it comes to this space. The Planet X team are very knowledgeable about this. They've been in the trenches. And yeah, I think you're going to enjoy this episode. So sit back, relax, and let us know what you think. As devs, we all love hackathons. They're a great way to boost your skill set, meet other engineers, and add to your portfolio of work. At Superfluid, we've sponsored many hackathons and decided to start putting on a hackathon of our own, the Superfluid Wave Pool. This hackathon is a little bit different though in that it's continuous, it's always open. You can submit any project built on Superfluid at any point throughout the month and have a chance to earn thousands of dollars in prizes depending on how your project stacks up. In just the last couple of months, we've seen dozens of teams build really amazing projects that run the gamut from Superfluid developer tutorials to full-fledged applications to a proof of concept Superfluid StarkNet implementation that we thought was really, really impressive. So we encourage you to check it out today. You can learn more by going to superfluid.finance/wavepool. That's superfluid.finance/wavepool. Happy hacking. All right, so we're here today with our inaugural Web3 gaming podcast episode on Devs Do Something. We have Lucas and Emil from the Planet IX team. We're super excited to dive into your backgrounds, Planet IX, and some of your other thoughts out there for Web3 game devs. But before we do that, I would love for you guys to introduce yourselves to our audience and let us know how you guys got into this space.
You want to go?
Yes. All right. So my name is Lucas from Stockholm, Sweden. Bought my first bitcoins back when you could buy pizza for 10,000 bitcoins. Didn't hold on to them, of course. Got back into the game around 2017 or something like that. And try to make that nice run. Made a lot of bad trades and stepped out again, and then went on full in again in 2021 with arcade NFTs, and playable NFT project. Basically, one of the first gaming projects that made a little bit of a buzz before I found Planet IX and joined full time here, been going hard since October 21 here at Planet. Been a real interesting ride.
Yeah, my name is Emil. I'm the smart contract lead engineer here at Planet. Um, First, when I entered this company, I didn't know anything about crypto really. I've heard about it, I've seen about it. I knew very little. Uh, I actually started on the backend side, and then I um, tried to write some smart contracts and got introduced to that. Um, and just writing smart contracts and working on it every day. Yeah, basically, I'm just interested in technology. I'm less interested in the crypto space. I find technology more interesting than the um, kind of business side.
I get it. Well, thanks for the backgrounds. It sounds like you guys have maybe at least Lucas. You've been kind of an OG in on the crypto side, and Amil. It sounds like you got into this just out of pure interest in the tech, right? You're in it for the tech, which is cool. Um, so I want to unpack what Planet IX is, how the game works, dive into some architecture decisions you guys have made, and then unpack some other things around best practices and things you guys have learned about like game development and building smart contracts for these kinds of things. But before we do that, can you guys give our listeners an overview for those who don't know, like what is Planet IX? Like, can you give us like a high level overview, like the gameplay, what's happening? I think that'd be really helpful for our listeners.
Yeah, of course. So Planet X is more than just a game. It's more of a ecosystem with intentional four legs to stand on, basically. We have a digital rendering of the planet Earth, which we've divided up into 1.7 billion land parcels called PICs. These PICs are NFTs that users trade to build territories. That's one of the legs. We have the trading and building land, basically. Uh, then we have a free to play section leg that is where you basically farm and utilize your land. You farm different assets and build and to get to more valuable resources, basically. Then we have our GameFi DeFi section for everything that surrounds the IX token, where we have a basically full offering of various staking solutions of NFTs and token staking. And the fourth leg is supposed to be which is not live yet, which is competitive PvP gameplay. With the token as the backbone of it all, with high price pools. So all of the tokenomics, or a big part of the tokenomics, is fueling the competitive gaming, competitive gaming side. But it goes a lot deeper than this. There's the whole ecosystem is built on several. I think we have 9 in-game corporations that in their own way offer different solutions in the game, where you can you can either trade on the marketplace or upgrade your assets, build construction. You can. There's a lot that we have. Lucky Cat that does the raffles, and it's a big ecosystem. And these corporations are also owned by the players, where there is governance in each of the corporations. So it goes quite deep.
Yeah, it definitely does go quite deep. Can you give our listeners like the the brief overview of like the narrative as well? Because I think that'll help tie things together. Like what's like the corporations and the land, like the narrative helps.
Yeah, definitely. So the whole idea of Planet IX is that the humans today continued on this pathway where basically the destruction of Earth is upon us with all of the how people are over consuming and it's not sustainable the way people live today basically. So the Earth is destroyed, and the humans have to leave Earth basically, and find a new home. And they go into hypersleep, and 400 years later, this AI on board they have found a new planet, which could host life once again. And ironically, this is the same planet. It is the planet Earth. But all of the data, all history, like all books, everything has been erased. So nobody knows that they were there before. So the planet is basically destroyed, filled with trash and toxic waste, and you can't go down on the planet yet. The players, called agents of change, need to start cleaning up the planet. So the free to play version, the farming game right now, players are farming waste and converting waste into more valuable assets to build and create energy, so they can basically start cleaning up the planet. So if you go onto Planet IX, you will see it has a very, very dark theme, like super dark. Like it's very everything is just black basically. And but the plan over time is that the planet will flourish once again, and look really cool.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's helpful. That ties it together. It's definitely very creative. You guys have done a great job with the storytelling, I think. And I know it's a lot of work too, putting those things together. So kudos to you on that. I'll put links to like some of the YouTube videos in the show notes so that people can kind of get an idea of what's going on. But when it comes to the game itself, right? So there's a lot going on, right? You guys are really building more than a game. Like you guys are really doing a lot of world building, right? This is more than just like, all right, some simple gameplay. This is like you have a lot going on. You're building an in-game economy, really. Can you walk us through like the high level architecture of like where are the crypto things and where are like the traditional gameplay things, right? Like I think it sounds like the PvP gameplay, if I had to guess, that's going to be more just like pure like game development, right? Like other game development would be, but it sounds like there's a lot of smart contracts and Web3 things interjected throughout this whole space. So I'd love for you to just give us like a general overview within these four legs, like what exactly here is Web3 stuff and what's just more like traditional game dev stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, everything is built around the IXT, the ERC20 token that is the native token of Planet IX. So we try to tie most of the game, like almost everything, in some way into supporting the token in some form of way. All right, but if we start with the land part and the marketplace and the picks, this is where we host. This is where the biggest bridge to Web2 is basically today. We're hosting. We have quite sophisticated backend that basically keeps track of all the land parcels, so to show it in the right way on the front end, right? But all of these land parcels are also meant to be NFTs. and we started out with we sold on pre-sale. We sold about 300 million land parcels, and when we went live in November 21, we started to mint all these NFTs, right, to the users, as the game should be. We wanted everything basically to be on chain, but what we figured out quite fast was that this is not sustainable. Like, we can't mint 300 million NFTs. It's going to take years, and Polygon network is not. We basically choked up the whole network, and it costs a fortune, and we need to find another solution. So what we did was to use Merkle roots basically to attach fix to a certain wallet, so that the users themselves could mint the NFTs on demand, like when they were needed. So when you do a trade today on the marketplace, if I buy a piece of land from somebody, then the NFT is minted on that first trade, for instance. So we have big parts of the map is off-chain, while the bigger pieces of land, the territories that you've built, they are all NFTs basically on-chain. That's basically the only off-chain thing we have right now. The whole farming game, the whole mission control, as it's called, where you farm waste, you turn it into biomods or astro credits and build facilities to get energy. Like all of that is very sophisticated. A very sophisticated bunch of smart contracts that hold everything together.
And everything is on chain. You can run the whole mission control game through a block explorer. We've set up some small blocks to make sure that people go through our front end, but in theory you can play the whole game through a block explorer. So all the data and everything is just smart contracts interacting with each other. So the philosophy before we started was to have the game be alive even after this company has died. So, but I guess that's not entirely true right now, because we use Chainlink, and Chainlink needs funds for verifiable randomness. But the whole mission control is on chain, and there are no off-chain parts to it.
Yeah, which is we think is very cool. Like, but it comes with limited user experience as well, and a lot of other hurdles, like gas fees, for instance. Like there can be, if there's a lot of other action going on Polygon, we do see a drop in farming, for instance. Since it's an economy, there it comes to a point where it's not worth collecting your waste if you want to sell it directly on the marketplace, because it costs more to farm it than to to sell it. If Gwei is up at 200-300, then we do see a big drop in the farming section of the game. But that's also good for the economy, I guess, since it's all about supply and demand.
Yeah, that's really interesting, though. On the topic of scale issues, I think you guys are running into problems that I don't know if anyone has really ever run into it at the scale you're operating at, right? The number of interactions, like 300 million NFT mints. I don't think anyone's even ever considered that or had to build a system to enable that necessarily, right? That's a lot. That's a lot of NFTs. Um,
It's only 30% of the map too. Like so, there's still a bunch of pics to be sold. But yeah, like it doesn't really make sense to mint that many NFTs either. I would say if you want to do everything like pure on chain, it does make sense. But for the sake of our game's progress, like it didn't make sense.
I think there is some virtue to having everything on chain, and every action that the user takes and every asset that the user owns, it is truly his. Even the smallest part, even a single waste, it is his. So I think there is some virtue to that.
yeah,
Definitely.
I think so too.
But then you would probably need to find a solution where maybe you're not on one of the main networks. Maybe you have your own network, or working on a subnets or supernets or some form of layer 3 solution. Or
When it comes to the scaling specifically, like let's say that there's another team out there listening to this that, you know, everyone wants to have a bunch of users, right? Let's say they succeed, just like you guys have succeeded so far, and they kind of get the kiss of death, and that there's so many people that want to use it that it starts causing problems. Like, how would you advise another team that's maybe a year and a half behind you guys to start thinking about this? Is this like, you know, start looking at taking some of your on-chain functionality and like bringing it off-chain if possible? Is this like, you know, go find a brand new empty chain to work on? Is it go to a subnet or like an app chain? Like, how would you advise another team to think about that?
I think, like, first and foremost, if you want to build a game on chain, you should aim to provide value and make the game fun and make people enjoy it. If people enjoy the game and want to play it and don't think about the money that they're spending, I think this is the first issue that needs to be solved, and the first thing that you should think about. And after that, you can try to solve all the other problems with the scaling problems. If you have built a product that players seems to like, you will inevitably run into some issues where you will pay a lot of money to Chainlink, maybe for random numbers, and then you try to find some solution for that. Either you keep on doing that solution, try to do some optimization, or you cut your losses and do some computations off chain. It depends highly on the game also, I'd say.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like, I mean, users are important. Without users, there is it's very hard to succeed. So I mean that was one of the main reasons that we chose Polygon in the last bull run. Polygon was a clear number 2 after Ethereum, and their setup is, we liked everything about their setup as well, but that's where all the liquidity was. And depending on what type of game you want to build, like we built our core game around trading and asset farming, around the token, which comes in the end comes down to volume, basically, like how much volume can happen on our platform. So if you want to build a game like that, then you either need to go and find all your users before you even launch, uh, and then you can basically launch wherever you want, I would say. But if you're trying to tap into some existing market, then definitely going with like on one of the big ecosystems is probably or an ecosystem that is growing. A chain that is growing would definitely be a piece of advice for me.
Yeah, and when you're building games on chain, you also have a lot of power to, like, it's hard to build on chain because of the gas issue, and that you have to keep that in mind always. But you have a lot of power to uh, to steer who pays, um, who pays the gas in different areas. So uh, maybe in some areas you can make some backend, do some interaction every day, and then you will take costs of the players. Or maybe you want to make more place more burden on the players and make them mint their own assets. Um, and maybe you want on verifiable randomness with Chainlink, and then the company has to have that burden and pay for that. Or so it's a lot of engineering in very on each on each feature, where you have to decide uh, who will hold the burden for paying the gas, basically. I think that's like a core issue that you always have to keep in mind.
Yeah, but if you have a great game idea and proper funding, then setting up on a your own supernets or subnets and uh, making all the transactions on chain, but having your backend as a moderator with your own gas token, like that's definitely a very good solution, I would say, as well. Takes away like that's not like pure decentralized strategy, but to make a enjoyable, like real game that you actually you play, you run around, you shoot, you kill, whatever. um, uh, that's probably a way that you need to explore at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think your comments around the who pays for gas fees are interesting as well, right? Because that there are little ways that you can improve the user experience to, like, again, like if you're you have to be maybe a little more well funded to be able to start sponsoring gas fees and things like that. But if you can do that in certain areas, it can help alleviate the pressure that some of your users might feel if gas fees become a bit of a problem. So I think that's interesting. Um, and tons of good advice in there about how to think about that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And there are also occurrences where you're trying to do as few transactions as possible, because transactions kind of ruins the immersion a bit. And in some cases, you may have the possibility to make two transactions that's that makes things easier or cheaper, but you kind of don't want to do it because it ruins the value of the game, I'd say. So it's a lot of weighing pros and cons on almost every feature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a UX consideration that other game devs do not have to think about, right? Have you guys? I don't know how much you followed some of like the account abstraction stuff that has been pushed or come out recently, but there's a lot in that general world. We've done several episodes on the topic with people from all over the industry, right? Whether it's like smart contract wallet providers or people that are building like meta transaction support and stuff. Are you guys planning to implement some of these new UX patterns into your gameplay? Things like bundling transactions, setting up paymaster contracts to pay for gas directly, smart contract wallet support. Like, have you guys looked into any of these account abstraction things, and like how do you see them as being potentially useful for people like yourself?
We are looking into them. We don't have, I wouldn't say we have a short-term plan of implementing, but there is definitely a lot of things that you can do there, and I think I mean, there's all forms of ways that you can make the user experience a lot easier. Uh, I would say it all, like a lot comes down to trust. Trust also in the end, because the space today can be very devious. Like there's a lot of puffed how do you say it, puffed up scams, like that look really good, but and you look at a project and it looks pretty good, and then you look a month later and the liquidity is gone, and the site is down. So I think you need to be really careful when looking into all of these solutions that are more user friendly, but takes away some form of security. We saw the I think it was one of the hard wallet providers, right? They went out and came with a solution that you could recover your seed phrase with your ID. That got, like, that's from a pure, like, safety perspective, that's horrible. Like, it's really dangerous. Like, somebody could actually fake your ID and get your seed phrase. So they rolled back that launch. Pretty interesting. But yeah, so all comes down to trust in the end. I mean, that's why we try to make everything on chain as possible, to really establish that. It's not pure reason why, but one of the reasons why is because we really want to establish trust in the market, and by having everything on chain, it's very everybody can look into it and dissect it how much they want, and if you do that with us, you will find that everything is very well built.
Yeah, I love it. You're definitely right about sometimes it being kind of difficult, especially for new users, to like actually identify whether or not something is trustworthy or not. Like good branding does not necessarily mean that the thing is not going to rug you. So I guess that's like a good disclaimer. But I mean, on this topic though, of like different tooling and things that can make things easier, right? You guys had to put together a lot, right? So I mean, you have trading features, you have NFTs, you have other things around gameplay that you needed to figure out. What did you decide to like build yourself, and what did you like just take off the shelf and integrate when building out this backend system? I mean, let's maybe focus on the smart contract stuff, because I'm assuming like the traditional backend stuff is more like traditional Web2 backend infra. But yeah, we'd love to just understand, like, it sounds like Chainlink was one thing. We know Superfluid is another thing. Like, what was the general stack of things you integrated on the smart contract side?
We utilize, because we move pretty rapidly, and we develop a lot of contracts. I think we have about 50 contracts now for different in-game features. We utilize Open Zeppelin. That makes it possible to upgrade contracts, basically. Most of the contracts it's basically just our own code, where we have setters for different values, so the contracts handles themselves, or with the user interactions, so we don't have to interact with them much. They need very little, almost no off-chain data, and we utilize Connext for for bridging. So we have some assets on Ethereum where people can stake their Planet assets there, and then they will get some benefits on the mission control or inside Planet game on Polygon. And then we have Chainlink, where we utilize automation and VRF. We utilize the VRF for the verifiable random numbers. We utilize that a lot because it's fun with probabilities. It's fun to throw the dice and see what you get. And we have Superfluid, of course, where you can exchange our IXT token for Astro Gold, and with this Superfluid token, you can then stream it, or you can use it as you rent to pay for tiles in mission control. That gives different benefits, and where you can place drones and facilities and generate resources.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things. We built most parts ourselves, together with a Web3 partner that's been basically with us from the beginning. It started by working together with us, and as we come to different points in the development for different game features, there are really big brands, projects in the space that has spent years on developing different infrastructure, different Web3 infrastructure, and a big we could also, build randomness, on through VRF, I guess. But partnering up with big brands gives both a very good product, but it also gives a lot of legitimacy in the space, which is equally, important in the stage where we are today. So I mean, when you're building, if somebody has something that takes it, it's also a cost thing, and a time thing. Do we want to spend time building this ourselves, or is it worth going together and with a partner that has a really good product to integrate it into the platform in some way? And so I mean, we're working with Alchemy, with Chainlink, Superfluid, Connext, and a few other partners as well on some Web3 things. But we build most of the things ourselves, basically.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's good advice, right? Especially on the legitimacy point. I think that's an underappreciated factor, right? So I think people should probably follow your lead there. But on the tooling side, okay, you guys had to build a lot of stuff yourself. And you've been kind of pioneers within this space of Web3 gaming, right? But what kinds of tooling do you wish existed? Like when you guys started building and you realized, oh man, we have to build this and this and this and this thing. Is there anything that you just wish you could have taken off the shelf that would have made your lives a lot easier?
I think testing on chain, testing out deployed smart contracts is pretty hard. It's pretty hard to. You can do it, but it's tedious to follow the flow and know each value at each point in a transaction. So it can be kind of hard to debug. So the probably easiest way to debug smart contracts is to have a lot of tests, and you run it locally, but there's always some differences. Even though you're trying to have them as equal as possible, it's almost impossible. So we do a lot of we run a lot
live testing.
No, so we have local tests that we run, and we also have the whole ecosystem set up on testnet, where we also do tests, but somehow bugs find it through sometimes. But not on the smart contract side, but on one tooling side that I think is missing from the Web3 space is some nice tooling to interact with users. Right now, we're utilizing a MetaMask browser. So, and I'm not sure if there is any. So there basically aren't any Web3 apps. It's hard to make a iPhone app that gets placed in the App Store where you can make transactions. So we utilize MetaMask browser, and it's not that, it doesn't look that good. You have like big bars on the upper and lower end, and you're contained to making a browser game basically. So some tooling to make apps would be very beneficial for the whole space, I think.
Yeah, but the app thing, the whole like Apple or App Store, they also have ridiculous. They have crazy. What's it called?
The policies are bad, you know.
They want to take a cut of the gas fees, for instance, which is crazy. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like
but maybe
because it's an in-app purchase kind of thing.
Maybe MetaMask could provide some app store or like inside their app or something similar.
Yeah. So the MetaMask is actually releasing a SDK now, which there are some like testers on it. We've actually been invited to be one of those, and with that, you will be able to play the game from like from the Chrome browser, for instance, and have a nice interaction with actually signing messages, which would be a big step forward. But I would say the wallet is a big UX blocker. Like having integrated wallet solutions into the platform would definitely be a big win for the Web3 space. Without
but there are some like maybe engineering workarounds you can do. Maybe a user can enter your site and do some transaction to enter fees to a wallet, and then when they play the game, it all happens off chain, but the company then does the transactions without the user noticing it. So they have prepaid for the transactions basically. Maybe something like that is the next big thing, trying to reduce all the hurdles and all the friction for Web3 users. I think that's the main issue right now.
Like savvy Web3 users don't really like. They like they enjoy the browse the wallet. Like it doesn't really matter. But what we're all trying to do is to onboard new people, right? So for normies to come in, that's definitely I would say one of the biggest hurdles in Web3 today. But yeah, what was it you started with saying? You said.
So he said that one thing that's actually interesting, Amil, that you brought up was this idea that basically running like complicated integration tests with smart contracts is really hard because it's extremely difficult to simulate the actual environment. I think that that's a really interesting problem. I went to GDC a couple of months ago, and there were a couple of teams there that were building like more like broad scale simulation stuff on how to like simulate what the actual like in-game economy would look like. But I do think, to your point, man, it'd be nice to have the ability to like test in prod without having to actually literally test in prod. You know, you want to see what it's going to do in prod, right? So I'm with you.
Yeah. So we utilize Tenderly a lot, where you can simulate transactions and view previous transactions and kind of see them, but it's not very. It's pretty rough and not very user friendly. It takes some time, but it could be done a lot better, I think.
Yeah, I mean, because of all, like, we've come a pretty long way now, like how we are releasing features, new contracts, new NFTs, like how we're doing that now compared to how we were doing that a year ago or 1.5 years ago. It's like day and night. Like now we have pretty smooth smooth launches. But a year ago, like the community, they are, you know, they have been through a lot of really exciting uh, uh, really exciting live testing releases, basically. Um,
Yeah. So one thing that we do to try to hedge for bugs in the games. So we have a big ecosystem with a lot of contracts, a lot of stuff is happening, a lot of users are interacting with it. Is that we are trying to make every value. We don't hard code any values. Every value is a variable. Every constant is settable. So we can read them on the contract, and in that way we can have a better understanding what is happening if something goes wrong. So try to have everything public. It gives more transparency for the users, and it also helps us out when.
But I think all of that makes sense. That's interesting advice too, as well, to just make everything public so the traceability is easy. A lot of our listeners are Tenderly fans as well, so they'll probably side with you on that one. But one, you know, we're getting, you know, a little bit closer to the end of our hour here. But one question that I really wanted to make sure that I asked you guys is whether or not you have any advice for teams that are interested in the same kind of world building that you're doing. Right, this design of an in-game economy is really hard. You know, you mentioned like our initial couple of questions were around like your 4 legs, right? We talked about these different things you've had to build in. So I'm curious as to whether or not you have any just general advice for teams that are trying to bootstrap and build these economies, right? I think there's probably a lot of different ways you could approach this, but insights from someone that's been in the arena would be helpful.
I think it depends a lot on what type of game you want to build and what features you want to build. But like some general advice, I'd say, is absolutely simulate, like simulating your whole economy, because then you can estimate like how many assets will be live in the market at a certain point given X amount of users. So I'd say simulation is a great tool to estimate how the market will move. And if you have great simulation tools, you can have a lot of variables and different parameters that you take into account. And so, of course, this question depends a lot on what type of economy you want to build. Either if you want to build like a traditional game economy, I think like in World of Warcraft, where they release in expansions, where you release some assets and it is very hyped in the beginning. The supply is very low and the price is very high. And when the players play a lot, the supply goes up and the price goes down over time. And then after maybe a year or two, another expansion gets released with new assets, where people can start to enjoy the new expansion with the new assets. So basically, the old assets gets forgotten or stay in that old expansion.
Yeah, the expansions model is interesting.
Yeah, and I'll also probably advise not to go into liquidity pools or like any pools where you put money into a pool and then you double it the next day, because that doesn't make sense economically. It creates very high inflation. Yeah, not a big fan of that.
What do you mean?
You mean the 2,000% APY wasn't real?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but in the end, it all comes down to supply and demand. Like that's the key the key thing in economics, and so that's a very important part of the economy. So create a lot of use cases for these assets that are that have heavy growth in supply.
Yeah, but I mean, deflationary assets are very trendy right now, especially in crypto. But I don't think just because an asset is deflationary, it creates more value. I think you can go with other types of economies, like the World of Warcraft economy, where you have inflationary assets. We have inflationary assets in our mission control, but you can build upon them and add more features upon it.
Exactly. Seasons is a great, or seasons or patches or expansions or whatever you want to call it is a very, very great, good technique to, bring the field together again. Like if you build a play to earn ecosystem, like being early into that ecosystem is, favorable. And with seasons, etc., you can you can restart the season, but that is not really possible like World of Warcraft expansions. That's what I mean with restarting a season, basically meaning the old items that you farmed, they might give you some advantage, but they won't automatically make you king of the game this next season. You have to play again.
Yeah, so I think you can go for a deflationary style. It's very hyped right now. Maybe you get some attraction just because it's deflationary, but I would say it's very specific on the game that you're trying to build and try to suit it for that.
But building in seasons and or expansions, like everything in our ecosystem is around, like everything is about the IXT in the end. Like that's the token you want to get to. That's what we're building everything around, and that long-term token, like you don't have a reset button on that. So really think hard, plan it out, everything from how it's released to over with vesting and airdrops, and what tokens should be put into what pools. Like a lot of thought needs to go into something like that. Like it's that will be the backbone of your game. Like if like how the gaming world is moving a little bit, it is towards monetization of your gaming assets or your gameplay or whatever, and all of the games will probably have their own tokens. So building an ecosystem that supports a good health for your token is a very, I would say, is my biggest advice.
Super useful advice. I think there's a lot in there that people can at least start thinking about if they're considering building something like this. Last question for you before we wrap. How do you see Web3 gaming evolving in the coming years, right? It seems like a lot of people in the traditional gaming space are definitely keeping their eye on what's happening here. A lot of people, at least that I've talked to recently, that work like full time in crypto, are interested in this as like a potential area to actually get users for some of the things that we've all been working on for a while. And I'm curious, how do you guys see this space evolving?
I personally see it as either people go over to supernets and build their entire game on supernets where they can control all the parameters and the gas is low, or more likely that that most of the game is happening centralized in a game, and where some assets are tokens. Because of the inherent lack of user friendliness in Web3 right now. It's hard to build a game where you have to do a lot of transactions and you have to pay for it every time. So probably something more closely to Web2, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, gaming as a field of business. I'm Swedish, so I forget the good English word sometimes. But gaming is thriving, right? And mobile gaming is thriving, and there's being so much money poured into this market, and the gamers are they're spending both time and money on something that they think is very, very fun. But today they can't really monetize on that at all, unless you're a pro level gamer at the top 0.1% of like the gaming space. Then you compete for big prize pools. So since but tokenizing these gaming economies will put power over to the gamers, where they can monetize. And this is what I believe, and a lot of big people in the space are talking about being could be one of the like big onboarding catalysts into Web3, where you have this massive user base, and all you really need to do is to help tokenize that gaming space. It's like perfect example. So I definitely think that's where we're going. But also, so that's one part. But also building infrastructure for esports for everybody. So having these big like ecosystems that we're trying to build, where you funnel a big part of revenue back into the gaming space, where ordinary users can if they win a match, depending on their ranking, they actually win a few bucks, or if you're a high ranked player, a lot of money. When this starts coming to life, everything will be very, very, very interesting, I would say. And the Web3 gaming space it is in a position where it should be able to be that onboarding catalyst.
I love it. Exciting stuff. Well, listen, we really appreciate you guys being here today. Before we wrap this up, I'd love for our listeners to understand where they can learn more about what you guys are working on, and then maybe even go play the game. Where would you like to point our listener base?
I mean, head on to the website. start clicking around. That's the way. That's the easiest way in. The ecosystem is massive. It's very difficult to understand like right away. That's play to earn for you.
All right. Well, we'll link to all that stuff in our show notes. But yeah, thank you guys again for being here. I learned a lot about, how to approach the Web3 gaming space, and I hope our listeners did too. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.